The morning sun was pouring into Philly's streets when Margaret Wilson got up. She stared at the skyscrapers outside her window while sipping her coffee. Today was a big day. After putting in years of effort, she'd finally landed a job as a senior financial analyst at the top-tier investment firm Bradford Capital. "Mom, isn't today your last interview?" Samantha called out from behind her. Still in her pajamas, the 10-year-old leaned her chin on her mom's shoulder. Margaret grinned and ruffled her daughter's hair. "It's just a formality, sweetheart. I already got the offer. It's just the final bit of paperwork and a quick office tour." Samantha gave her mom a hug. "Congrats. I know you'll do great at this job." Margaret felt her heart warm up at her daughter's words. For 10 years as a single mom, she'd worked her butt off to raise her kid while climbing the career ladder. She'd gone to night school to get her degree, paid her dues at smaller firms, and finally landed an offer from a top company. It wasn't an easy ride, but she felt proud she never quit. While making breakfast, Margaret thought about her own mom, Eleanor Wilson. Her mother had worked as an executive assistant at a big Philly company for over 30 years and still had tons of business connections even after retiring. But her relationship with Margaret was never that great. After her little sister Vanessa came along, their mom clearly started favoring her more. Even though Vanessa finished college, she never got a real job and just stayed cozy at their mom's place. And yet, their mom still called Vanessa my precious and kept spoiling her. "Hey Mom, we're heading to Grandma's tonight, right?" Samantha asked while slathering jam on her toast. Margaret let out a sigh. "Yeah, I've got to tell her about my new job." Truthfully, Margaret wasn't totally sure how she felt about breaking the news to Eleanor. Her mom would put on a happy face about her success, but Margaret doubted she really meant it. She'd made comments before like how a single mom could never work at such a big company. Still, Margaret felt she had to tell Eleanor, both as a grown-up and as her daughter. "I want to show Grandma my new drawing," Samantha said. "Sure, we'll take it with us," Margaret answered, though she wasn't thrilled about it. Eleanor was Samantha's grandma too. She seemed to judge kids from single-parent homes and barely showed love to her own granddaughter. On top of that, Vanessa kept making openly mean comments about Margaret and Samantha. She'd say stuff like, "Big sister had a kid young and threw her career away," or, "Kids from broken homes usually turn out troubled, right?" She didn't even care if Samantha heard her. Margaret checked the clock and quickly started getting ready. "Sam, we're gonna be late for school. Move it." After dropping her kid off at school, Margaret drove straight to Bradford Capital. Standing in front of the tall building, she took a deep breath. This was when all her hard work would finally pay off. She told herself she'd gotten this far by her own skills and hustle. That evening, Margaret grabbed her daughter Samantha from school and they went to her mom Eleanor's place together. In the car, Margaret said to her kid, "No matter what Grandma or Aunt Vanessa say, don't sweat it. We'll be okay as long as we stick together." Samantha gave a little nod. "Got it, Mom. I'm really proud of you." Feeling boosted by those words, Margaret pressed Eleanor's doorbell, secretly nervous about how her job news would go over. A week went by. Margaret was getting ready for her first day at the new job next week. She'd collected all the paperwork she needed and psyched herself up. Her daughter Samantha was pumped about her mom's new gig and kept begging, "Can I get a peek at your desk?" That evening, Margaret's phone buzzed. The caller ID showed Bradford Capital. Assuming it was just a last-minute confirmation call, Margaret picked up with a grin. "Hey, this is Margaret Wilson." But the words coming from the other end of the call stopped her cold. "Ms. Wilson, it's James Collins from HR. I just need to check something with you." The guy sounded totally confused. "We just got word from your mom saying you're turning down the job." Margaret was shocked. "What? Turning it down? I never said no to anything. This has got to be a mix-up." James was shuffling papers on the other end of the call. "So, we got a message from Eleanor Wilson saying Margaret Wilson would turn down the job because of family stuff." "Hey, Mom." Margaret couldn't believe it. A million questions raced through her mind. Why would her mom pull this without even telling her? "Look, there's been a big mistake here. I'll be right there to sort this out." The second she hung up, Margaret was hit with a wave of anger and total confusion. What the heck was going on? Why was her mom trying to get her to quit the job she worked so hard to land? "Sam, I gotta head over to Grandma's place. I'll call Jessica's mom and check if you can sleep over tonight." Samantha looked worried seeing her mom so upset, but she nodded. "Mom, you alright?" "I'm okay, don't stress." Margaret tried to calm her daughter down, but she could feel her chest tightening with worry. Speeding down the road, Margaret got to her mom's house half an hour later. You could tell she was mad by how hard she banged on the door. Vanessa answered the door. Spotting her sister, she pretended to be shocked. "Hey sis, what are you doing here so late?" "Where's Mom?" Margaret asked, struggling to keep her cool. "She's in the living room." But before Vanessa could finish, Margaret brushed past her and walked inside. Eleanor was sipping tea and flipping through a magazine in the living room. She gave Margaret a warm smile when she saw her. That supposedly sweet smile just pissed Margaret off even more. "What's up, Maggie? You seem really mad," Eleanor said. "Can you tell me about my job? Why did you reach out to Bradford Capital to turn down the offer?" Margaret's voice shook with anger. Eleanor set her magazine on the table and took a graceful sip of her tea. "Oh, that," she said as casually as talking about the weather. "I suggested Vanessa instead since that job would be too tough for you." Margaret was stunned. "What?" Eleanor got up and headed to the window. "It's all right, Maggie. I reached out to an old buddy who's an exec at the company to put in a good word for Vanessa. She's way more qualified for that position. That same job I spent years getting ready for. Went through tons of interviews and earned all the right credentials to land." Margaret yelled, "Who gave you the right to call the shots about my life?" Just then, Vanessa walked into the living room. She had this nasty smirk on her face. "Being a housekeeper fits you better, sis. You should just stick to being a mom for your kid. You're not built for the corporate world." Margaret was stunned silent. "Why would you even do this?" "Maggie, just calm down," Eleanor said sharply. "A single mom could never manage such a big job. How are you gonna work late every night? Who's gonna take care of Samantha? That's my call to make. Samantha and I decide things together. Look how worked up she's getting already." Eleanor shot a look at her younger daughter. "See, that just shows you're not cut out for this. Vanessa can handle the job easily." Margaret was totally shocked. "You've always acted this way. Never noticing anything I do, always picking Vanessa." Her voice cracked. Why? Why do you dislike me so much?" Eleanor stared at Margaret like she was the sun. "I don't dislike you. This is what's best for you. For my own good." Margaret let out a bitter laugh. "Destroying my life is for my own good." "You're overreacting," Vanessa cut in. "It's not the end of the world. You could just concentrate on raising your kid. Or is that too much for you?" That last remark sent Margaret over the edge. What you did is inexcusable. I'm gonna call Bradford Capital right now and tell them the truth." "It's useless," Eleanor said coldly. "James is a close friend, and it's already settled. Vanessa begins work next week." Margaret stared at her mom and sister, finding no family warmth in them. Her chest hurt and tears filled her eyes. "All right," she muttered. "But this ain't over." Margaret walked out of the house. Once inside her car, tears rolled down her face. Just thinking about Samantha made her chest feel even tighter. How was she gonna explain this to her kid? How could she possibly answer why Grandma and Aunt Vanessa were picking on her mom? Driving toward Jessica's place, Margaret made up her mind. "I'm done letting my mom and sister run my life," she promised herself. She'd start job hunting tomorrow and maybe even look into legal stuff if she had to. For Samantha's sake, and honestly for her own, she needed to stand up to this crap. Her phone buzzed. Jessica was calling to say Samantha got there safe and was already playing with her kid. Feeling a little better, Margaret pulled over and took a deep breath. "Can stay strong. I'll get through this." Gazing up at the twilight sky, Margaret kept saying these words to herself. After crashing at Jessica's place overnight, Margaret jumped into action first thing in the morning. First, she reached out to Bradford Capital's HR team to explain what happened. But James Collins wasn't around, and whoever picked up just told her bluntly, "We've already picked a replacement." "Please just give me a chance to talk," Margaret pushed back, but all she got was this reply. "It's a call from the top." Margaret, still not ready to quit, was gonna march straight to the office with her resume when Jessica held her back. "Margaret, you gotta cool off and come up with another plan," Jessica said, handing her a coffee. "First you gotta look for a new job. With your skills, you'll definitely find something else real soon." Margaret couldn't find the words. She was crushed to lose the job she'd worked toward for years like this. "Think about Samantha," Jessica said softly. "She knows you're a tough mom. How'd she feel if you broke down now?" Margaret let out a long breath at Jessica's comment. "You're absolutely right." That afternoon, Margaret grabbed Samantha from school, and they headed back to their tiny apartment. She told her daughter straight up, There's a tiny problem with Mommy's new job, so I'll be hunting for something different. But Grandma, Samantha started, but Margaret softly cut her off. It's grown-up stuff kinda messy. Don't stress over it. Still, Samantha was sharp. Did Grandma and Aunt Vanessa push you around, Mom? Margaret fought to keep her tears in at the question. Sometimes even family just doesn't get each other. But it's all good. We've got our own way forward. That night, after Samantha went to bed, Margaret started looking for new job openings. They weren't as fancy as Bradford Capital, but a few investment firms needed financial analysts. She figured she'd send out her applications right away. About a week later, Margaret got interview calls from 2 companies. This whole time, her mom Eleanor hadn't reached out at all. Even when Samantha asked, "Can I call Grandma?" Margaret just said, "We need some more time." One morning while getting ready for an interview, Margaret's phone suddenly buzzed. The caller ID showed Bradford Capital. She picked up, totally surprised. "This is Margaret Wilson." "Ms. Wilson, it's Robert Blackwell, CEO of Bradford Capital." Margaret gasped. "Call straight from the CEO." "Yes, how can I help you today?" "We've got a serious issue, and I'd rather talk to you in person. Can you swing by our office this afternoon?" Though thrown off, Margaret answered, "Yes, absolutely. Thanks." And Mr. Blackwell paused for a second. "Ask your mom and Vanessa to come over too." After she hung up, Margaret had no idea what was going on. But before reaching out to her mom and sister, she wanted to figure things out. She called Jessica to fill her in and asked her to grab Samantha from school. Then, she drove over to her mom's place. When she got to Eleanor's house, it was weirdly quiet. After ringing the doorbell, her mom finally answered. Her face wasn't its usual proud self. She actually looked kinda worried. "Maggie," Eleanor said, sounding shocked. "I'm pretty sure you got a call from Bradford Capital's CEO," Margaret said calmly. "He wants to meet with all 3 of us." The color drained from Eleanor's face. "From Robbie? What's going on?" Margaret snapped. Just then, Vanessa came down the stairs. Even she'd lost her usual confidence and looked shaken. "Big sister," Vanessa started, but Margaret held up a hand to cut her off. 3 p.m. today at Bradford Capital's office. The CEO wants to see all of us. If you know anything, you should tell me right now. Suddenly, her mom's phone rang super loud. Eleanor checked the phone and turned even paler. "It's Robbie calling." Margaret froze, watching her mom pick up. "Yes, this is Eleanor." Her mom's voice was shaking. Yelling came through from the other side. Even from the next room, Margaret could easily make out the furious voice. "Eleanor, you asked for a special hiring favor because we're friends, and you lied about your daughter having Margaret's background and accomplishments. Vanessa can't even manage basic spreadsheet tasks and embarrassed us in today's client meeting. I need an explanation." Eleanor started making excuses, but the voice on the phone got even angrier. "Submitting 10 years of fake credentials is basically criminal behavior. Get to the office immediately with both your daughters. I've reached out to Margaret too. We've got to figure out the truth." When the call ended, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. Margaret was too shocked to speak. Eleanor stood frozen, still gripping the phone. "You used my credentials?" Margaret asked in a shaky voice. Eleanor stayed silent, but from the top of the stairs, Vanessa faintly said, "Mom told us to. She said since my background wasn't strong enough, we should use Big Sister's 10 years of experience and credentials. And you sold me out." Tears filled Margaret's eyes. "Why? Why would you go this far to hurt me?" Eleanor finally looked up. "I figured you were bound to fail. Having a kid so young but refusing to give up on your career, you were bound to stumble sooner or later. Against all odds, I just couldn't take it." Eleanor's voice was hardly above a whisper. "I wanted to give Vanessa a shot. She's got nothing going for her." Margaret shook with anger and grief. "You've always looked down on me. Ever since Samantha came along, no, even before that. But this time I won't let it slide. You took 10 years of my hard work and put Samantha's and my livelihood at risk." "I'm so sorry," Vanessa finally admitted. "I just couldn't handle the job. I totally bombed a big presentation this morning." "So that's how it all came out," Margaret said quietly. "And you didn't even make it a week." The 3 women stood there in silence, like all the family's buried lies had finally come up. "Get in the car," Margaret said softly. "We're heading to Bradford Capital. It's time to come clean about everything." In the car, Eleanor spoke softly. "I told Robert Margaret was a single mom with no flexible schedule, so Vanessa would work better. He pushed back at first, but as a favor to our friendship, he went with Vanessa. Margaret kept her gaze on the road, silent. A mix of feelings churned inside her. Anger, hurt, the sting of betrayal, and even some weird relief. Now it made sense why her mom had ignored her all these years. The Bradford Capital high-rise appeared ahead. Margaret drew a sharp breath. I don't know what's coming next, but listen, she said to her mom and sister. Starting today, things are different. I won't let anyone hurt Samantha or me ever again. The three women stepping into the elevator looked as grim as if they were walking to their doom. The conference room up on Bradford Capital's 45th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows showing off the Philly skyline. On one side of the table, CEO Robert Blackwell and a few stiff-faced execs were seated. Margaret, her mom Eleanor, and her sister Vanessa sat across from them in a line. Thanks for coming, Blackwell started, his tone icy. We've got something serious to talk about today. You could cut the tension in that room with a knife. Margaret sat bolt upright, fighting to keep her cool. Eleanor looked way older than she actually was, and Vanessa was practically curling up from fear. First things first, let's go over what we know. Blackwell looked over the papers on the table. Ms. Margaret Wilson, you were officially offered the senior financial analyst role at our company, right? Yeah, that's correct. Margaret replied calmly. And your mom, Eleanor Wilson, reached out to turn down the offer without telling you. She also suggested your sister, Vanessa Wilson, as a replacement instead. That's right, Margaret agreed. Blackwell faced Eleanor. Eleanor, you and I have known each other for 30 years, but this situation crosses a line. You passed off Margaret's background and accomplishments as Vanessa's resume. Is that true? Eleanor grabbed a glass of water with shaky hands, took a sip and muttered, Robbie, just answer the question, Blackwell snapped. Eleanor let out a sigh. Yeah, I did. At those words, the room went dead silent. Why would you do something like that? I wanted to give Vanessa a shot, Eleanor replied softly. She's got talent but no breaks. Talent? Blackwell frowned. Vanessa couldn't handle even the simplest financial analysis at today's client meeting. She humiliated us in front of our biggest clients. Vanessa turned red and looked down. What's worse, Blackwell added, our investigation found Margaret's qualification certificates and performance reports were changed to Vanessa's name. This isn't just about bad judgment, it might include fake documents. Eleanor went pale. I didn't do it on purpose. Let me prove it, Blackwell nodded to the HR rep. The rep pulled up several documents on the screen. They clearly had Margaret's resume with just the name switched to Vanessa's. And here's what makes it worse. Blackwell pointed to another document. An email pulled from Vanessa's computer. The screen showed an email from Vanessa to Eleanor. Mom, with big sister's credentials, nobody's gonna notice. I'll pick up the finance stuff fast, so it's all good. Thanks for giving me this shot. Margaret was too stunned to speak. She kept staring at her mom and sister. It hit her that they'd actually planned to wreck her life, not just from some quick jealousy or anger. I had no idea, Vanessa said weakly, making excuses. Mom mentioned big sister wasn't really into this job. That's total nonsense. Margaret's bottled-up anger suddenly burst out. You've been trying to tear me down from the very beginning too. You took the career I worked my butt off to build as a single mom and tried to wreck my life. Margaret, Blackwell said softly, putting his hand on her shoulder. This isn't on you. Truth is, your skills are legit. He slid another file onto the table. Here's your original resume along with your hiring evaluation. You scored higher than any other candidate we had. That was completely because of your skills and experience. Margaret was so touched she almost started crying. Our company won't put up with this kind of behavior, Blackwell said sharply. Eleanor, Vanessa, this usually calls for legal consequences. Eleanor raised her head. Robbie, considering how long we've been friends. Don't hide behind friendship, Blackwell snapped, keeping his temper in check. You broke my trust. You hurt the company and treated a skilled person wrong. After a short pause, Blackwell turned to face Margaret. Ms. Wilson, we'd love to honor your original deal. Plus, to show how much we believe in you, we want you to lead a major project. Margaret was shocked. Seriously? Absolutely, Blackwell grinned. Your skills speak for themselves. Given the stress you've been through, we've arranged better terms than we first discussed. He passed her a paper. It mentioned a better salary than first offered, flexible work hours, and childcare support options. Treating someone unfairly for being a single mom breaks our company rules, Blackwell said with a stern look. Actually, we admire how hard you've worked and how much you've achieved despite the challenges. Margaret wanted to say thanks but was too emotional to get the words out. She just bowed her head slightly. Now, about Eleanor and Vanessa, Blackwell's face turned serious again. We won't sue, but this will be shared with our partners and others in the industry. Eleanor, the trust you've earned is gone. Eleanor's shoulders dropped, like she'd given up. Vanessa cried, I'm really so sorry. I was so jealous. I couldn't handle watching big sister succeed. Margaret finally pulled herself together and got up. I get it, Mr. Blackwell. Thanks for being so kind. Then she faced her mom and sister. I won't be taken advantage of again. We're done after today. Her voice shook as she added, for Samantha's sake, and for mine too, I can't keep this up any longer. What I need to teach my daughter is that blood alone doesn't make family. Love and respect do. Stay out of my life. Eleanor let out a shocked gasp. Maggie, you can't do this. It's Margaret, she replied calmly. Thanks, Mr. Blackwell. I'll begin work next Monday. Margaret kept her chin up while walking out of the meeting room. Stepping into the elevator, she finally felt years of weight lifting off her shoulders. Wilson team, is the proposal all set? Inside Bradford Capital's conference room, Margaret grinned while speaking to her team. A whole year had gone by and she got promoted to deputy director of the financial analysis division. Her team was now known as the most successful crew in the company. Yep, we're all set, a young analyst replied confidently. Perfect, Margaret said with a satisfied smile. All right, let's kick off the presentation. The presentation totally nailed it. The client was blown away by her sharp analysis and convincing style, which landed them a big new contract. When Margaret got back to her office after the meeting, there was an envelope sitting on her desk. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized the handwriting. It was a letter from Eleanor. Margaret took a deep breath and tore open the envelope. Hey Margaret, only when I lost everything did I finally get how bad what I did was. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so sorry for hurting you and Samantha. No excuses here. Messed up. I heard about all your success. I'm really proud of you. Honestly, you might not buy it now, but Vanessa's turned her life around too. She went back to studying accounting from scratch and landed a job at this little firm. She wants to say sorry to you too. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just hope someday we can talk like family again. Love, Mum. Margaret finished the letter and stared out the window. Philadelphia was starting to glow with twilight. All sorts of feelings swirled in her heart, anger, sadness, and this weird sense of relief. That night, Margaret and Samantha were having dinner in their new place. Through the big living room window you could see the city lights. Her daughter kept chatting happily about school, and Margaret listened with a warm heart. Hey Mom, it's been a whole year, Samantha blurted out. Aren't you gonna visit Grandma and Aunt Vanessa? Margaret gazed into her daughter's bright eyes. I got a letter from Grandma. What did it say? She said sorry, Margaret replied softly. Samantha hesitated before asking, Are you gonna forgive them? Margaret pulled her daughter close. Time fixes some stuff. It'll never be like before, but maybe someday we can sorta reconnect. For now though. Right now, let's just enjoy our happiness, Margaret grinned. We're the tough Wilson family. Just us two, we still make an awesome family. Samantha squeezed her mom tight. Mom, you're the strongest person in the whole world. Side stars started twinkling. Margaret breathed in deep. Life's unpredictable and can be pretty harsh, but if you keep believing in yourself, things will work out. And she truly knew in her heart that real family isn't always about blood. It's about people who respect and support each other.